Assalamualaikum and a good day to all of you. So for today, you will learn about PPP authentication protocols. So as I have explained earlier during the lecture, so there are two types of PPP authentication protocols, which is the first one is the CHAP and the second one is PUB. So in today's class, we will use the same topology that we have implemented last week. So the focus of the configuration is on the three routers, which is router 1, the ISP, and also router 3. So between R1 and ISP, I will configure CHAP, and between the ISP and R3, I will configure PUB authentication protocols. So let us start with CHAP configuration. So on the CHAP configuration, so this is a diagram to make or illustrates how CHAP authentication works. So basically, as we know, CHAP are using three-way handshake. So notice that here is the R1 and this is the remote routers or the ISP, and the username and password for the remote router or the ISP need to be configured on the local routers. So the username here must be the username of the peer. So if you are currently in R1, so you have to configure the username and password of the ISP. Okay, and you have to remember that you need to configure the same password or the identical password at both routers, because those passwords will be used to create a hash code along together with the challenge issued by the routers. So, and the router name and password must be exactly the same because they are case sensitive. So, for example, if the route host name here ISP is capital letters, so you also need to use capital letters for the username of the ISP on the R1. So now you can also later change the host name, and if you want to change the host name, you need to also change the username, but you do not need to add another entries. So you just use the ppp CHAP hostname command to change the username. All right, so this is something that you need to be aware, because the router use the host name to identify itself to the peer. So it must be the same. You must use the same router name and password. Okay, next, let us look on how we are going to configure. So before we're going to configure it, we will look at what are the current encapsulation on the serial interface. So basically, you can just issue the show interface as 00. This is what I have done previously, and then you can see that the encapsulation used or the protocol used on the serial link is HTLC type. Okay, so we are going to change the protocol from the HTLC to PPP. So for each of the routers, we have to go to the interface by going to the global configuration mode. So the interface that is connected through the serial link is interface S000, and then we just issue the command encapsulation PPP. Right. Currently, the interface is on down state because we have to make sure the other end is also configured with PPP. So we repeat the process to all of the serial link interface. I think I typed wrong link. Right. So now the serial link is in up state, has been enabled. So I will do the same to interface S001. And I will configure PPP interface S001 on R3 routers. Sorry, I spelled wrongly here, encapsulation. Okay, so now all of the link has been up. So let us check the properties of the interface. So I look the information on the interface on R1. So it should be S0/0/0. So you can see here the PPP has been established on the routers, on the serial link of S00 of R1. But you notice that I have not set up any configuration for PUB or CHAP authentication yet. That's you remember yesterday, because we have not configured the authentication phase. No authentication has been done for both link. Okay, even though the LCP and NCP is currently running. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to configure CHAP. So to configure CHAP, you can always save the configuration, copy, run, start. But first you need to be in the interface, which is interface S00, and then we issue the PPP authentication. If you are not sure, you can just use the question mark command. Okay, so we have two here, which is CHAP and also PUB. So we're going to use CHAP now. Right. So the link is down because the other side is not configured with the CHAP authentication yet. And then we have to specify the username. So remember that the username must be the host name of the remote routers or the peers. So here the peers is the ISP, and the password is Cisco 123. Enter. You have to do the same for ISP. Go to interface S000, which is the interface that is connected to R1, and then get out to CHAP authentication. It's still down because you have not configured the username and password for R1. Right. So press fast forward to speed up the authentication process. So you can see now the interface has been up. Okay, so you can so now the CHAP is successful.